Welcome back, everyone. Another episode of the Pitre podcast. So, I'm looking terrible right now. I'm not going to lie. I'm looking mad slayed. I'm about to hit the gym. I'm about to do literally leg, not legs. I sprained my meniscus not too long ago being old fuck playing soccer. Bro, it's the most mundane thing, man. As you get older, you're going to start to realize that literally anything gets you injured. Like anything under the sun. It's so pathetic. Your body literally becomes pathetic. Things that would not affect you in the past or things that you can just shrug off when you were younger. Bro, as you get older, man, it takes you out. Like I went in for a tackle. My leg hit the guy's leg. I fouled him, unfortunately. Scored 2 goals that game. Shout out to me. But fucking sprained my meniscus, man. I guess is because freaking my meniscus hit, or like that area of my knee hit the leg. So it's not necessarily, shin to shin contact, which is usually what happens during soccer, but it was my meniscus actually making the impact. So maybe that's why I fucked up my meniscus. But that's gay as fuck. I'm not even gonna lie. Like, I didn't even, like, it sounds worse than it actually was, but the impact wasn't even that bad, to be honest with you. It was very minuscule. So the fact that this shit took me out for weeks now, it's ridiculous. It's been about 2.5 weeks. Is getting back to normal, I would say. But the reason to go back to what I was talking about, the reason why I said I was going to do leg and not legs is because I'm literally just going to work out my left leg. Now, you might think that's stupid. It is stupid. But there have been studies that shown that if you have an injured part of your body, so just say, in this example, my left leg being good, my right leg being bad right now, if you work out your left leg, you would still keep that muscle. That will help keep the muscle masses on the right leg, actually, than not working out your legs at all. So if you're ever injured, you want to do upper body, maybe you got a bad shoulder, maybe you got a bad arm, whatever, work out the other arm. Will help maintain the muscle mass overall in your body. So you'll learn something new every day from Dr. Trey. Anyway, I don't have anything in particular that I really want to discuss today. I'm going to be honest with you. It's not like a set topic that I really want to go over in deep dive. Basically, this is like a wing it kind of episode today where I was trying and searching for a topic or something that I can like really discuss and deep dive this week, and literally nothing was coming up. Like there's things that I could have talked about, but there's nothing that I really was not necessarily piquing my interest. So I'm just going to go completely off the cuff today and just talk about quite literally whatever comes to mind. Like I just rambled about my leg for like 2 minutes just now. But yeah, it's a winged podcast, man. We're going to talk about literally anything and everything. Of course, this would be a lot easier if you have someone to go back and forth with. I am working on getting guests for the podcast very, very soon. It's just not going to be me rambling for 30 minutes to an hour every single podcast, that I promise you. But as I said beforehand, it's easier when you have a guest, but when you're on your own, you just got to kind of make it work and just ramble, which I think I can do. One thing that's coming to my mind right now is to talk about MMA, man. We're going full circle. Is basically UFC is doing away with pay-per-views. You might think, who the fuck cares? Totally understand that. The reason why it's a big deal is because UFC has been doing pay-per-views, the pay-per-view format, for literally its inception. And the UFC started, I think, before I was even alive. So literally for 30 years it's been doing the pay-per-view format, and it's finally going away with it. Or doing away with it, excuse me. So that's a really, really big deal, right? And listen, a lot of people were criticizing the pay-per-view format. A lot of people think that the pay-per-view format, why can't I say pay-per-view fast? What the fuck is going on? A lot of people think that the pay-per-view format is just not it anymore. It's a relic of a past time, and that we should just entirely do away with it and just everything be on streaming and play one flat fee. What is English today? And just pay one flat fee. I agree. I'm not going to lie. Now, if you do the financials might not agree. I didn't do the math in that regard. But I just think that how we're progressing as society, it really doesn't make sense to do pay-per-views anymore. But basically, they've been doing pay-per-views forever, right? They do a pay-per-view every single month on a fight, multiple fights, basically a fight card, if you will. Fight card has about like 10 fights. Some are on the prelims, some are on the main card. Prelims being like the ones you get for free, so the fights are right before the pay-per-view. And then you have to pay for the pay-per-view to get the main event fights, which are the remaining 5 fights, essentially. And usually for a pay-per-view, it's a title fight, because title fights just bring in more money rather than not having a title fight. The only times that there's not a title fight, if it's like a really big name fight between 2 big name fighters. But that's been their format for 30 fucking years. And again, I've been watching that sport since I was a child, like a literal child. I've seen so many careers come and go. I literally remember watching Max Holloway is about to retire. I remember his debut fight. I was a teenager when I watched it. I remember John Jones' debut fight. I remember when GSP and Anderson Silva was fighting in their prime, you know. I remember freaking watching Pride, which is a predecessor to UFC, and their main competitor for, you know, a while until, unfortunately, that organization completely disappeared. So again, I've been watching this for a long time, so the fact that they're finally going away with pay-per-view, I think overall it's a good idea and a trend toward the right direction. Now, I think the reason why they're doing that is not necessarily because they want to be progressive. I think they realize that they kind of fucked themselves in regards to their formatting, right? So they have... it looks so dark here, so I'm going to sit up. I have every fucking light on. Still, I'm in the dark. It doesn't make any sense. So basically, they have one pay-per-view a month, as I said beforehand, but they would have multiple other fights throughout the month. So basically, it would happen every Saturday, right? So it'd be a fight every Saturday, a fight card every Saturday, 10 fights in total. Those most likely, more times than not, would not be title fights. It would just be like, they have hundreds of fighters, so they have to keep their fighters in rotation to, of course, pay these fighters and still maintain product dominance in the space. So I think they just got too congested with basically their fight cards and how many fights they were putting on every single year, right? It's hard to justify to someone who is not like a true MMA fan, someone who's casual, to watch an MMA fight or pay $70. Also, the price tag is freaking insane. $70 for a pay-per-view is fucking crazy. So it's hard to ask a casual person to pay $70 for a pay-per-view when you're also throwing in 3 fights a month. You know, 3 fight cards a month. As a casual viewer who just wants to casually watch the sport, they're most likely not going to dish that money out. It doesn't make sense for them. They're like, yo, I don't really care about the sport this much. I don't feel like paying $50. I would just wait literally next week until another fight card's free. That's their logic. So it's hard to get those people on board to even pay for the fight when you're giving out so much free material as it is already, right? So then you have the more of the hardcore viewers who... it's hard for them to pay and maintain that $70 a month fee every single month to just watch the sport that they love. And they're not just paying for necessarily for the pay-per-view. They have to pay for ESPN. So you have to pay for ESPN in order to even pay for the pay-per-view. So you have to have an ESPN account. That's like $10 to $15. So I got to pay $15 a month just to buy the $70 a month pay-per-view. So you're spending like over $1,000 literally every single year just to watch a fucking sport, you know? So it's one of the most expensive sports to really watch as a viewer. So people who are, you know, hardcore fans, it's expensive for them. People who are casual fans, it doesn't really make sense for them to even pay that fee. Not only that, there has been, of course, with everything being online, the internet being so prominent in our lives today, people are going to find a way to pirate this. You know, piracy has been going about the internet since the inception of the internet, right? So it's easy to find these, they call them streams. So it's easy to find these streams online right now. extremely easy to find these streams where you can just watch the UFC fight for free. Now, of course, when you watch the UFC's fight for free in that regard, I say in that regard a lot, I gotta change that. But when you watch these UFC fights for free, you're going to come across ads, right? You're gonna come across ads. You're gonna come across, it lagging, the stream being lagging a little bit. You're gonna come across, it being pixelated because maybe you have bad service or reception, so like it just looks really bad. And this is a heavy viewership sport, so like you don't want to watch a fight that's pixelated. That's fucking sucks. So there are things that are downsides to streaming it illegally. On top of it being illegal, number one, you can be charged for this. So of course, other than it being illegal, there are drawbacks to not paying the $70. But a lot of people would rather just take those drawbacks and just pay $70, which I agree. I'd rather just take those drawbacks and pay $70. Now, while I was a hardcore MMA fan and watching MMA, and even growing up, we never streamed it. We always paid for it, right? And not because of some moral high ground, I don't want to do anything illegal. It's to pay the fighters, because at the end of the day, when you're not paying that, unfortunately, $70 fee to watch a stupid fight, it's the fighters ultimately that are getting gypped out there. Yes, the UFC is also losing money, but the UFC is going to be fined as a billion-dollar corporation. A lot of these fighters, they're basically like a percentage of revenue they're getting for the fight is tied to the pay-per-view fee. It's tied to the pay-per-view numbers. So if more people buy the pay-per-view, they get paid more. And of course, MMA is notoriously a sport that fighters don't really get paid. It's like an 80-20 split where the company makes 80% of the profits and the fighters get 20. Now, to put that in perspective to other sports, for basketball, I think players get 55%, owners get 45%. For baseball, I think it's like almost 50-50. For soccer and MLS, they get paid shit. I'm not going to lie. I think it's pretty bad too. But, in Europe, when soccer is more prominent and is actually number one sport within, the region, the country, etc., those players get paid extremely well. So, and football, same thing. They get paid extremely well. It's a better split. So the split in boxing, another, the comparison to MMA as far as a combat fighting sport. Before, fighters used to get fucked. Now, in boxing, fighters have more power than the commissions. So, when you're not paying for the fight, ultimately, you're kind of fucking up the fighter in the long term there. But, yeah, that's the reason why we'd pay for the fight. So I really wouldn't stream it. If I want to stream it, I can literally ask like 9 people and I can get the stream extremely easily. It's really not that hard. But if I ever want to watch the fight, I would usually pay for it. 1, because I don't want anything breaking down, the stream getting fucked up. And 2, it was just the right thing to do, I guess. But all that's going away, like I said beforehand. So we're switching over to the streaming model. So I think they're partnering with Paramount. I think the deal is for 7 years and like $7 billion, like $1 billion a year. I think that's more than Paramount's evaluation. I don't think Paramount is worth $7 billion. I think they're worth a lot less than that. So how is that going to work? I'm not entirely sure. I don't know the financial breakdown of that one. But $7 billion is a lot of money, man. I haven't did the math yet. I'm wondering if you took the calculations of the last 7 years pay-per-view numbers. And, of course, you can never really trust the pay-per-view numbers that are coming out of the UFC's mouth because, of course, the UFC, no one is really the ESPN ultimately has those numbers, and they ultimately have those numbers. They don't really have to disclose it to the public. They say it to brag what the numbers were, but I'm sure it's inflated. So I wonder if you took the UFC's pay-per-view numbers from the past 7 years and, take up the total cost of revenue that was generated from the pay-per-view numbers. That's their biggest form of revenue. What would it compare versus the $7 billion deal from Paramount? I'm assuming the $7 billion deal for Paramount dwarfs what they were making in pay-per-views for the last 7 years, and especially because pay-per-views are on a downturn. But I think overall it's a good thing for the company. I think it's moving in the right direction. I think it's a good thing for fans. All they need to do is have a $15 membership basically every single month to Paramount, and they have it there. So a lot of people are going to start registering for Paramount. Paramount also is a platform that doesn't have bad stuff. Like it has some pretty good shit in there. So other than UFC, it can definitely be worth it. My only concern now is the fighters. How are the fighters going to get paid, especially the champions? Because the champions, a lot of their revenue comes from pay-per-view. So how is that going to work? How is the pay structure for these fighters going to work? The UFC is cheap. Dana White's a cheap fuck. I've been saying it for years. They're extremely cheap. They don't want to pay these fighters shit. They want to pay these fighters as minimal as possible, right? So I'm thinking they're not going to change anything. I think specifically for the lower tier fighters, nothing's going to change. And listen, you might think, it can't be that bad. These lower tier fighters expected to fight 3 times a year. You can't fight more than 3 times a year. You technically can. You probably should, I'm not going to lie. Because, again, you're getting kicked and punched in the head. You're getting fucking body slammed onto a mat. You're getting your limbs literally or ligaments ripped apart. So it's not something that you can do frequently every single year. It's not like, a fucking basketball game or baseball game or even comparable to like a football game. You can't do it week in, week out like that. Not only that, you have to cut weight, make weight, train. You got to train for a specific fighter. That takes months at a time because everyone's fight style is different. So these lower level fighters are probably fighting 3 times a year, right? So you get a flat rate to show and you get a bonus to win. So a lot of these fighters are on 20-20, right? So 20 to show, 20 to win. If you fight 3 times a year, but you lost all 3 of your fights, you only made $60,000 a year. Not only that, you're most likely going to get cut from the UFC, right? I think UFC, it's not a strict policy as far as how many losses you can take in a row before they cut you, but for a lot of these lower tier no-name fighters, just 3 times and you're gone, basically. So then that's the biggest show around. They have the biggest market share. No one else can really compete. So you're fighting back in regional MMA, essentially. You're getting paid even less now and trying to fight your way back to the top. So, but if you win, on the bright side, if you win 3 of those fights, so 40 multiplied by 3, that's $120,000 a year, which is not terrible, but again, like you're getting taxed on this, and to put your body on the line 3 times a year to only make $100K, you're probably making less than $100K due to taxes. Not only that, there's taxes, there's your expensive, and you also have to pay your trainers, you have to pay the gym. You're not just training for free. So that $120K is looking more like $50 to $60K. So to fight 3 times a year to win those fights and to only end up making like $60 to $70K a year, it's not great. Now, of course, the fighters who are champions, they make a lot more. But even then, when you compare it to like other sports athletes or like boxing particularly, the UFC fighters don't get paid not nearly enough as some of the boxers that are out there, And oftentimes, man, the UFC fighters are more well-known than the boxers. Like, not to throw it in boxing's face, but, there's UFC fighters out there who are far more popular than any boxing champion around, but they get paid a lot less. So we'll see how the pay structure goes. I don't think it's going to change. I think for champions, it might be different. I think for low-level fighters, it's going to be exactly the same. They're going to get fucked either way. I think overall, as a company standpoint, I think it's ultimately in a good direction. I think $7 billion for 7 years is really good. I think it's more than what they were making beforehand. And on top of that, from a viewer standpoint, it's also good as well. So from a viewer standpoint, company standpoint, it's a positive. From a fighter standpoint, it might be a negative. It's too soon to tell. Damn, I just rambled a lot just for MMA. It still got it in me, bro. Still got it in me. Moving on to other athletes that don't get paid well. So we have WNBA, right? And I only want to talk about this because WNBA, there's been basically, if you've been living under a rock. So unfortunately, these fucking poor women, man. These poor women. So these women, I think the biggest controversy or the biggest issues with WNBA now is that, one, they don't get paid. They're another demographic that doesn't get paid. Another sports demographic does not get paid whatsoever. So a lot of these women MMA, I was about to say women MMA fighters, women MMA, let's say women MMA. What am I doing? Women NBA, women NBA athletes. They're not getting paid anything. They're getting paid like 70,000 to 100,000 at most. So a lot, and even like the stars, like Angela Reese is only making like 70 to 80,000. You know, no one is really getting paid in the WNBA, man, and it sucks because you're a professional athlete. You know, like you are the cream de la cream in women's basketball. You know, you're as good as you're gonna get for women's basketball, and it's not really. You're not really motivating women to get into that sport or to strive to get into the WNBA when the pay is so bad. You know, it's like, why would I do that when I can just work a regular job? And on top of that, you're constantly traveling, you're away from your family and all this stuff. Yeah, it's cool that you're playing professional sport, but of course, when you compare it to the NBA, there's women that are getting paid nothing. Now, it's a lot of arguments around that. A lot of arguments around that being the NBA pays for the women's NBA. So the women's NBA is only around because of the NBA. And they take like a $10 million loss every single year just to keep the WNBA afloat. So, you know, from a business standpoint, the women's NBA, they really don't have any room for negotiation. They're operating $10 million under budget. You know, they're not under budget, but they're operating $10 million under every single year. You don't really have the right to negotiate from a business standpoint, unfortunately, when you're not making any profit, you're not making any ROI. Now, the WNBA has started to get more popular over the last couple of years with like Angela Reese and Caitlin Clark coming in and like stirring things up. And I don't think the WNBA has fully I didn't think they did a really good job at gaining and utilizing their star power, if you will. I just think it caused a lot of infighting between some of the older WNBA members who are like, why is this new girl getting all this shine? Like, she shouldn't get all this shine. We've been playing basketball for the last 10 years. No one talks about us. Like, you all should have used it. You should have used it the way, fucking MLS used Messi, where you just focus on the attention of that one player to get people into the stands to watch this one player, because ultimately that would benefit you and the whole league as a whole. But anyway, we're not here to necessarily talk about them not getting paid. So there's been, had to give you context of what the problem is and why people are doing this one particular thing, which is funny but not funny at the same time. So, a lot of the women's NBA players have been complaining about this stuff, especially they've been really vocal over the last couple of years. And excuse me. And someone thought it was funny. So originally it was, I think, a crypto company, and as an ad or as a as like a joke to get notoriety or to get publicity, someone within a crypto company threw a green dildo on the floor of the basketball game, the WNBA game. So these women are running around playing basketball, doing their thing, being professional athletes, and in comes a big-ass green dildo onto the floor. And of course, it's sexist. As a guy, I want to laugh. I'm not going to lie. I really want to laugh. It is kind of funny just looking at it objectively. Of course, it is fucked up. Don't get me wrong. It is messed up. We shouldn't be throwing green dildos, black dildos, any colored dildos onto a WNBA floor. It's fucked up. We shouldn't do that. It is kind of funny, though. I'm not going to lie. But, of course, if I was a woman, and especially if I was a WNBA player, I would not find that funny whatsoever, especially with, the inequality, the pay inequality battle that they're currently fighting. So this went viral. Of course, society is retarded. The crypto company got notoriety, which is exactly what they wanted. And now there is a trend of people throwing dildos onto the WNBA court, right? Different colored dildos. And now apparently you can bet on what color dildo is going to fall on that WNBA floor and whatever color you guess is like a payout. Which, like, we don't need to turn everything into gambling. I think we have a huge gambling problem in this country that we really need to address. But this is bad. You know, these women just want to play basketball. They're already underpaid. They don't really have to deal with this shit. Like, we should be mature enough to know that this is not okay. But it got to the point where they're going to start building nets where the floor seats are so that people can't launch dildos onto the floor, the NBA floor. Not only that, it can be a safety hazard, man. If you throw a fucking 10-pound dildo, there's 10-pound dildos out there. If you throw one of those big monsters onto the court, someone could trip, they can fall, they can fucking tear their ACL, you could clock them on the head. Like, there's a safety risk to this too. But they're going to start building nets. But I feel like once you start building the nets, man, you're going to get more people to start launching them more. Because now there's no repercussions for launching it because it's not getting on the floor. So people are just going to start hurling dildos, man. Like fucking catapulting dildos onto the floor. So it's not a good thing. I wish we can just be more mature about this and the women wouldn't have to go through this bullshit. But, yeah, unfortunately, that's just what it is, I guess. Poor women. I mean, again, it's kind of funny, but at the same time, it's really not funny at all. God, what else? Segueing into politics. So, just something I saw online that was super random and weird lately was I saw Triple H on Twitter at the White House doing, like, you know, his famous spit into the air shit. And I'm like, yo, why the fuck is Triple H there? So apparently, Trump administration, they gave Triple H the position to be like the fitness and health person of the administration. I'm not quite sure what you would name that person. That it's a bullshit role, right? That role is kind of a bullshit role. Doesn't really have any power or influence. They have to report to Donald Trump. Donald Trump to sign off on anything that they do. But they put him in health and fitness or health and safety or whatever to get the younger demographic to want to work out, right? Now, I'm kind of mixed about this one, right? Because one, ultimately, this position doesn't really matter. I'm going to be honest with you. They don't have any power. They literally have no power. So it is kind of a bullshit role, so no harm, no foul. Of course, you know, I would want my government officials to have credible background in whatever position they're getting elected to. I would not want, you know, someone like Bam Margino, who is Bam Margino. That's the fucking skateboarding guy, right? I think so. But basically, I would not want a podcaster to be in a high level position in the FBI, which is currently under the Trump administration. So we don't want that, you know. Like, I want someone who has experience in the role, who has a credible background, who can definitely make an impact, which the Trump administration is just fucking putting anyone everywhere, basically. But then again, it is a bullshit role. And I think it's not necessarily a bad pick because, one, we got to look at the role, right? So we've got to look at the state of the country as well. We're fucking fat in this country, me included. I am above my weight index. Now, no doctor is going to look at me and say, you're a fat fuck, you need to lose weight. They're not going to do that. I am still above weight, and I am fucking struggling to lose that weight. I'm not going to lie. I was losing the weight, though. Before my bitch-ass knee got injured, I dropped to 180. No, I'm lying. I dropped to 189, right? My goal was like 183, 185. Now I'm like at 193, 195. So I'm reverting back to my fat fuck ways. But once the knee is back, once the knee is sexy again, make America sexy again, I'm going to drop that weight. But we have a weight issue in this country. We have an obesity issue in this country. And I'm not going to sit there and point the blame at the American people and say, yo, you're just fat fucks and you don't know how to stop eating. Yes, a lot of them do have that problem. But a big issue as to why this country is so fucking fat is because they literally engineered the food to be addictive and the food to be terrible for us, to want more, that is leading us to be obese. These companies are literally poisoning us. They're poisoning us. We all know this. This is not up for debate, not up for discussion, not a conspiracy theory. They're quite literally poisoning you in meat, and they have been for the past couple of decades. Every single thing that we eat, even if it's labeled organic, is bullshit. All of it has preservatives and chemicals and all this bullshit that is leading for us to be obese, leading for us to fucking testosterone to go down, leading for a whole bunch of health nonsense and health issues that we're currently facing collectively as a country, right? So that needs to fix first. We need to fix that issue. That is the main issue that we need to fix. But unfortunately, these companies lobby our congressmen, lobby our senators, lobby our, elected officials to continue to poison us. And until we fix that issue, unfortunately, nothing's going to change. Sorry to get nihilist here, but basically, going back to the Triple H pick, I don't think the Triple H pick was necessarily a bad thing. And the reason why I say that is, one, Triple H is popular. Triple H is popular amongst millennials, people like me, and amongst Gen Z, because of he took over Vince McMahon's role in WWE, right, and pro wrestling. Pro wrestling is extremely popular with the younger generation, with Gen Z, with the generation before Gen Z, right? A lot of, especially boys, come up watching wrestling, right? It's just something that's popular. So it's not necessarily a bad choice in regards to getting the youth to want to exercise more, to want to be more fit, essentially. And when you have a popular figure who, Triple H is in shape. He's 56 years old and he's fucking jacked. Granted, he did do steroids most of his life, but he is someone that is in shape and is someone that you can point to and say, yo, this person actually is fit and has been fit for a very, very, very long time. Like fucking 30 years, basically. Over 30 years. So that's someone you can point to and say, yeah, maybe he doesn't have the credentials, but he is fit. He does know what he's talking about in that regard. Yeah, he did use steroids, but everyone used steroids in wrestling back in the day. That's just what it was. Everyone was jacked out of their minds. So that was just the era. So he's someone that's popular with the youth. He's someone that's popular with like middle-aged people such as myself, because we're familiar with him because we grew up watching him wrestle. So he can influence that demographic, which is the demographic that they primarily want to influence. People who are like 50 years old, Gen X, boomers, they're on death's door. They're already up there, especially the boomers. They're definitely on death's door. Gen X got a couple more years. They got like 15 to 20 more. They're not necessarily focused on those people right now. And even so, Triple H is a Gen X, so he can talk to, his generation, I guess. But they're trying to focus on the younger demographic, to get the younger demographic to be more fit, health conscious. Now, you may complain that Triple H doesn't have the credentials in order to really talk about that stuff, which I would agree. But let's look at who was in charge of that shit during the Biden administration. I don't know who it was. I forgot if it was a man or woman, but I know that person was obese. The last person we need to talk about health and fitness in this country is someone who's obese. I don't want to be a dick, but I'm going to call it for what it is. I'm going to be honest. That's like asking me about how to do open heart surgery. I don't know how to fucking do that. Why are you asking me for? I don't have the credentials for that shit. This is above my pay grade. I can't do that shit. There's no reason for me to be speaking on that. It's the same way talking about health and fitness with someone who's obese. Clearly, they can't talk about this. They're not in a position to talk about this. So at least from a physical standpoint, Triple H is in a position to talk about this, right? And he is popular enough to get, especially the younger generation, the kids of today, to want to be more health conscious. So I think overall, not necessarily a bad choice. I think, of course, you could have picked a lot better people, but I think for the sake of popularity and for his bullshit position, I don't think it's necessarily bad. I just found it extremely awkward, just him being in the White House doing that shit. My brother's favorite wrestler was Triple H growing up. He would do it nonstop, or he would just spit water in the air. It's just, you're having your fucking babas rain down on you. It's mad gay. You're getting a baba facial, bro. That's hella homo. But yeah, I just found it extremely random. But that's this week's episode, man. Yeah, maybe we're gonna do these more often. This was kind of fun, just rambling on stupid shit. Hopefully you guys found this one entertaining. Of course, catch me next week. I'm going to start dropping clips of the Pitre podcast on TikTok and also on Instagram. That's in the works. I got to do 25 episodes, so I gotta edit out clips of 25 episodes, have to listen to 25 episodes, do the clips, export the clips. It's gonna be a long undertaking, but once I'm finally done clipping everything and releasing everything, then we can definitely, that's something to be expected week in, week out as well. Of course, you can find us on YouTube now. We are on YouTube, man. Every single episode is on YouTube. The Pitre Podcasters will be there. It will be releasing on Mondays as well, every single week. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your week. Peace out.